G'day, Aussie bonsai bloke. How you going? G'day guys. Today working in the shed. Aussie Natives Night. So let's get to it. We've got I think this is a claret top Melaleuca or leptospermum. I'm not sure. Something like that. And this one here I think is a Melaleuca alternifolia, and we're going to work on these. These two here, if you go back to some original videos, were from some tube stocks, and they are probably only 3 years to 4 years from a tube stock. So today we'll give you a good idea on what's going to happen if you get some tube stocks. They've not been put in the ground, they've only been put into pots. So yeah, anyway, and another thing, I've cleaned up my shed after last time, getting really frustrated with all the crap I was tripping over. Just a quick look, this is where I normally was filming. That's where I'm going to film now. I've cleaned up all that crap along there. Trailer's still here, cleaned up some benches, and I should be good to go. I've moved Adrian Eggleton's sign, Aussie bonsai bloke, that he made for me quite a few years back, and I've got a bit of a walkway and the old potbelly cranking along. So it's going to be quite a nice comfy night in the shed. Let's get to it. Bloody beauty. Alright guys, first thing is we've got to get these out of the pot so we can see what we're even looking at, and we've got to weed them. So let's get the pots off. Plenty of healthy roots. I'm not going to repot them for a little while, these things. I'll probably leave them in this pot, these size pots, for another year. Even though they have filled them up pretty well. Just had a big black house spider almost jump on my leg. Right, got them out. Alright, I'll give them a weed and we'll come in and have a bit of a look at what's going on in here. Okay, next up I'm just going to go through both trees and just find out where the roots are. You can see that's got a good spread there, and then I'm just going to go along and cut a lot of this little wispy water shoots off and just get them out the way so that we can really see what the trunk's doing. If there's a big bare area somewhere where you think you might need a branch, don't cut the wispy stuff off around that area. If that's all that's there, in this case I have some big solid branches, so I can definitely cut all the wispy stuff off and rely on a solid branch if I want to keep something there. Chances are it will probably go, but we'll see. Right, we've got a bit of the stuff cleared out at the base. Now let's get them both on some turntables, Adrian Eggleton's turntables. Spinning tree bonsai or something like that, and that way we can get up close, spin them around, see what we like, what we don't like, and make it easy to work on these trees. So let's do one at a time. Get onto this one. This one here has got a lot of upright growth. And this one here has been cut hard before, so it's got a lot of more interesting branching. So at the end of today, I feel like this one here, the alternifolia, is going to have a lot more on it. This one's going to be cut back pretty hard. Alright, so here we are at the base. And you can see we've got some really nice roots coming down here. I think when I pulled them out of their sort of second grow container, it's their third grow container. I've just been potting them up slowly. When I pulled them out of their first one even, I would have planted it at a level where the roots were the best. Probably bare rooted it almost when I first did it, or at least stripped the top of the pot down enough, the tube stock down enough that I could then see what's going on, plant it slightly deeper than that, and then here we are. We've got a good root system on the surface, and there's no need to really dig down further. When it does go into a final pot, or maybe into its next pot, I'll have a good scratch around there and see if there's anything else even more interesting, but I'm pretty happy with that. Right, let's get onto the tree. As you can see, we've got an overload of branches here. Way too many from each spot. It's going to create it to fatten up where we don't want it to fatten up. So we've got to get in there now and decide what we don't want. And it's easiest to decide what we don't want, cut that off, and then see what's left. It just makes it a little bit less complicated, a little bit easier for our brains to process. You don't think about the whole thing at once. You just think what you don't really like. Where would it not look good to have a branch? Where would it look good to have a branch? So, as we spin it around, let's look for a good base. I like right there. Still quite wide at that angle, if you're going to go a single trunk. Still decent even there. Gets a bit thinner there, so the root base there is not as good. It comes out forward at you, but the sides there's only a little bit, nothing on this side. And you can see the two trunks don't look too bad from there. Keep spinning. There's nothing on this side really at all. And it comes straight forward out at you. So I quite like somewhere around there as a front. Maybe there. Maybe there. Somewhere around there. So let's choose what we don't like if we're looking at it as a front. Another thing I will say, if from a side view, a lot of these trunks or branches all line up in almost a solid plane. So we can either bend some out, which we will do as well, and also select some branches that have more angle outwards naturally, rather than straight ones that go straight up and follow the original trunk. But bear in mind, this one here goes outwards here, but then when you turn it around to what is a potential front, then it follows the line straight up. So it's hard to choose. Do you want the better transition in taper with a decent amount of movement in the main trunk from the front, which is probably more appealing? Or do you want to keep this one here and then from the side it fills out more? I think you always opt for the front. What's a better line from the front? And then hopefully when that side branches we can spread it out sideways. Right, let's get rid of some ugly ones that we don't like. I don't even know what I'm really trying to say here. But anyway, let's chop that one off from the side. Chop that one off. Decide whether we want this trunk here or whether we want to start a new one. I think there's enough movement in this trunk here that we can keep it. So last time I worked on this, I would have just cut it back a lot of branches off and just cut back two pretty short, and now this is all new growth. That's what I think I would have done. So cut that one off. I don't think we need a third one in the middle, it'll just look weird. So let's cut that one off. Do we need this side one? Maybe if it was at a different level or come out of here, it would look kind of cool down there, but problem is it comes out in level with where this trunk comes out. So when that fattens up, it's going to look weird. So I think we're going to have to remove that one. Bear in mind too, we can do angle changes too. And plant it on a different angle. But for now, let's just remove what we don't want. So, we're getting down on the branches already. I want this to look eventually like a fairly natural looking tree that just fans out as you get up to the top. I think to create that, we're just going to have to choose branches that we like and cut them back really short and just let it grow out again. And just do sort of like clip and grow, just keep cutting it back until you get enough good branches coming from areas that you want them. So in this case, I am probably just going to opt for the two fattest ones and not much else. And it might look drastic and ugly after today, but hopefully in the future it will then branch out a bit more, and then eventually you'll keep filling it in, and you'll end up with something that hopefully looks like a tree. I'm going to keep that's the front-ish. That one can go. These two little wispy ones can go. I don't really know if I want to keep that one. May keep I might keep that one, and then that means I'll probably get rid of these ones here. So I've kept that one because it's got already a bit of a transition from there to there. So I'll keep that one. And decide what I want to do with that. It's a bit of a funny transition. It just goes like a big bullhorn. So which one? Maybe we go this one and then that one, and just get rid of this one to create a bit more taper. Let's do that. It's all about taper and getting rid of ugly bits, especially in the beginning like this. I'm not gonna try and rip it and make it look natural right now. I'm just gonna cut it, get a rough idea of what I want to do, and then in the future get the old carving bit out and just clean up some of these obvious handmade, man-made cuts. So that's got a bit of taper there now. Pretty happy with that. And the beginning stages of working on a tree are like this. If you brought this tree, if you said to your wife, I'm going to work on this tree, and she looked at that massive tree, she'd think you're going to come home with a finished bonsai because there's all these branches. It looks great. But the truth is, when you get home from, I don't know, your first workshop or a bonsai meeting, if you don't know any better, you're going to come home with a stump and a couple of short branches. Or someone's going to style it, try and keep all these branches for you, and then in 2 years you're going to realise I should have just cut it back hard, so I got more character, more shape, more branch divisions and branch directions. So this is what happens. You just cut it back and you end up with something a bit weird. And to be honest, a stump. Right, so we got one more here left to go. Which one do we take? Right, which one do we take? Which one do we keep? I feel like I don't like this one straight at you. And if I take this back one off, we're going to end up with the same scenario here. So maybe if I took the front one off. Well, let's be weird. Let's be weird and take this one off. Seems weird to take that one off. And, you know, I might have made the wrong choice, who knows. But I didn't like, if I kept that one with one of those two, I just didn't like the look of it. It would have looked like this one here. So I'm going to keep these two together. Then chop them back short so they can divide. And then what we can do, use your concave cutter so you got a bit of an angle there. Work out how far you want to pry these apart. They're not going to go too far. Ooh, there you go. Not going to go too far and they're going to split. Good thing about these natives, if they do split a bit like that, you can leave it. I've done it quite a bit in the past, and you just put this in there, measure the gap, and it'll still shoot out. They seem to still shoot out. Heal up and then away they go again. As long as you don't crack it right open. So it's sort of split down there, and you've got one little seam running down here now, keeping this bit alive, and that's split off from the rest of this. So let's put it in, and if worst comes to worst and that actually dies, which I don't think it will, then we just go back to this one and let that divide out. Right, there we go. So that's created a little bit of separation there. And what I will do to seal that up is put a bit of wood glue in there. In the little crack, I'll put some wood glue, and that should hopefully seal it up. So you can see that crack in there. Let's get a bit of wood glue. Alright guys, so here's my wood glue. PVA wood glue. My wound sealer. Just shake a bit off. Liberally put a bit in there. If it runs down the trunk, who cares? Eventually it'll peel off over time. And that should seal it up. And that should continue to grow, that trunk. And that's it. That's what we ended up with. I don't quite know what is going on here. I think I'm in the light. So that's what we've ended up with. A trunk. Another second one. Here is actually a potential front too. You can see the roots here are quite nice. Quite widespread. So that's the potential front too. Then we spin it round. Forget about that section. You have those two spreading out. Then they'll divide, and then we'll start to build a nice canopy in there. Just keep the interesting and get get rid of the stuff that's not. Hell of a change, hell of a change. Alright, let's put that one back in its pot and get rid of it. Right guys, so close up of this one. Not a lot of root base back here. I can feel a little bit under there. But the best roots are actually right here and out the side there. And I don't know, from here you get a reasonably interesting trunk with some branching and stuff. Kind of comes at you a lot, but the very start of it does go away from you and then it comes back towards you. You could spin it further around and you lose a bit of the width of the root base if you do. So you've got to decide whether you want the better shaped trunk, which could be there, or the better roots, or a compromise between both. There are some roots there, and by the time I repot it in another year, maybe, just maybe, there'll be a good enough root base under here that we can bring this to the front. Otherwise we could opt for something like that, which is still bloody interesting, to be honest. I'm trying to develop a lot of my trees so that you can spin them and look at them from any angle. So let's hope that this one can be one of them. Now, as far as trunks, if I let this one grow, it's coming from the same kind of spot as the rest of them, and it will end up looking like 4 trunks. I don't like this little guy in here. So I think it's going to end up looking like 4 trunks. So I'll just bring you guys back a little bit. So I'll get back here and we'll do a bit of cutting. I think I'm going to have, because of that, I like this one. It's developing, it's getting some branching. I think we're going to have to cut. You can cut this one back short, let it divide out if you're going to keep it. But I think it's going to have to go all together. So let's get rid of it all together. Sorry, mate. That branch still would have been helping fatten up the trunk and the roots and all that sort of stuff. Give it some health and vigor. So it's done something. Now, on this branch here that we do want to keep, because in the past I've decided I really like it. We want to stop things once they become too straight and too boring. So I feel like here we're probably better off keeping the stronger one, which means getting rid of this weaker one underneath. Potentially this weaker one here as well, but maybe not. We've got one on the inside here, which I think I would like to keep. Let's chop back some of the wispy stuff to have a good look at it. Yeah, so it's got a couple of branches on it. Alright, so we'll cut that one back short. Decide we want to keep it. Do we want to keep any of this other stuff? Probably not. I feel like if we do, when it all gets fat, it's all going to look like the same spot, even though one of them was technically not the same spot, but very close to it. Might shorten this one a bit more, and shorten this one. And then let's decide what we want to do with this other one. Do we want to keep that? I might shorten it for now. Just see what it looks like. Maybe keep this little guy here, face him towards the back of, or the front of the tree, whichever way it ends up going. But it doesn't really matter what's the front or the back, just spread the branches out and try and fill in the whole area with branches, front or back. The only difference with the front is you don't want too many that are like coming straight out at you, which hide the trunk, because part of the Australian native tree is that you can see a lot of the trunk structure in our trees. Now, so we don't end up like before, don't cut all the middle shoots out and leave the two edge ones, otherwise you're going to end up with a big fat section and then a bullhorn, a bit like that. So try and keep two that run together at an acute angle, whichever ones you think might be better suited. So in this case, you could keep these two that run together up here. The only thing about that is there's a bit of a trunk behind it, and eventually they'll be competing with each other. So let's oh god. So let's chop them off and go with something else. So now this branch here can run on its own, have its own space. This one here will fill in this area here. We've still got three, so we need to decide. It's a pretty easy decision. If you look at it, it sort of decides for you. If we kept these two, this one would start competing with that too much. If we kept these two and cut the middle one out, you would end up with the same thing, a bit of a bullhorn, not too bad. And if you keep these two, well, I think that's the way to go, because if you chop that one out, it won't be competing with that. Chop these ones back short so they develop some movement and taper. Cut them back for movement and taper. And leave this one grow, this little wispy one. That'll get plenty of sunlight now and take off. So just because they're wispy doesn't mean you cut them off. If they're in a good spot, keep them. So let's spin around, decide what we do and don't like. I don't really like this guy, the way it's going to come straight across and cover all the trunk down low. And the area that it would go into if we kept it is occupied by this one here anyway, which is quite a nice shape to that one. So we'll keep this one here and just shorten it a bit. This one down here we've decided we're getting rid of. Now, down low you like to keep the stronger branches, but only if they're in a good spot, and in this case both of those are in a pretty good spot. So let's get rid of all the wispy stuff. I do want to keep, see this branch here actually has division there. I want to keep that division. So I'll go slightly higher on the stronger one, slightly lower on the weaker one, and then I'll cut this wispy one off this side and then cut this strong one back nice and short so it can divide and hopefully start something quite nice. These things back bud pretty well, by the way, so should be alright with that. Right, so moving on up. Right, so moving on up with the theme of keeping everything spreading, filling in the gaps and keeping it interesting. Let's move on to this branch. Right, I quite like the way this one comes in and fills in here, so let's keep that stuff. Could cut a few wispy ones off, take it back to two shoots. Not overly fussed because it's so little and delicate right now, and naturally some little branches would die off anyway, but let's cut it all back to two, and cut these wispy ones off here. Now what have we got here? We've got two here competing with each other. This one here offers a lot more. It's already got 2 branches out here. It's a bit fatter at the base, which is more believable. So let's chop that one off. Get rid of these wispy ones on the inside of the crutch here. Right, cut that one off. Couple of wispy ones on the inside here we'll cut off. Cut that one to almost start creating a pad. You can see just from the trunk, only one more step on from the other one that we hacked back pretty severely. We've kept just another 1 or 2 branches and they've divided a little bit, and now we're actually starting to develop a pad already. So you can see these little pads here starting to form, especially we cut them all similar height. You can start to see it. We'll cut this one back bit shorter, and when he divides he'll catch up and be part of the canopy. And there you go. So that's, you know, already starting to get a bit of a pad there, pad there, pad there. When I say pads, you know, it's a pad to us, but when you stand back and look at the whole thing, it's almost like a canopy. It's like separate little canopies that run and then sort of fold in together to make the whole tree canopy. But they're separate canopies or pads, which then mold together to make the tree canopy. Damn cold. Sick of these damn colds. Right, cutting that one back to a nice little shoot that's coming there. This one here, I also like. That one's dead, so that's easy choice. What other choices? Well, there's a couple of weak ones in there. Get rid of those. Now, we've got to choose here. Do we like the one that goes up with this one, or the one that goes out wider with this one? That one will fatten up if you let it grow, so you can choose the wispy one over this one. This one is growing back towards all the other trunks, so let's Jesus. Let's seriously consider chopping it off. Let's chop it off short for a minute. Now I know I'm going to chop this one short, and this one short. So the question is, does it look better with those ones or with those ones? I think in this situation it will look better with the fatter one, only because this one here, when it grows out, it's going to make editing a bloody pain in the ass this cold. I'm going to have to edit out every freaking cough I do. This one here, if we let it keep growing out, fatten up, kind of look cool, but then because you've got this straight section here and here, you're going to end up with quite a long straight section. So I think we are better off going with that and completely cutting our ties with that direction and changing direction up into there. So I think that's a good choice. Right. So here we've got 2 here. So if we shortened those, what do we got? We got kind of 2 coming from there, plus the third one, the main leader. So it ends up being almost 3. And then technically, if you count the ones underneath, it's 4. So let's get rid of the ones underneath, back to 3. The 2 there, plus the main trunk. And see what we like here. This one's in a better spot because, and it's got a side shoot. Better spot because it's filling in an area that's a bit void. Yeah, and then we'd have to rely, if we cut this one off, we'd have to rely on this one filling in. which it would do. If we cut this one off, this one here could come back across with a shoot and fill in that area that would otherwise be missed. One thing I like about this one, it's got a little twist right at the start, which is quirky and nice. This one's dead straight and in line with this other straight bit up here. So it really brings your eye to that straight line of this shoot going up. Actually, get rid of that shoot. This shoot going up and that shoot going up in the same plane. At least that little kink sort of helps that out and makes it a little bit more interesting. So I think we're going to have to get rid of that one. Yeah, I got plenty of trees, so I sometimes don't think about stuff very long before I cut, and sometimes I regret it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't regret it, sometimes I do. But I've always been an impulse buyer and an impulse cutter. I only got to think about it for a second and it's gone. So we'll shorten. Got this dead stub off this one. We're going to have this section coming out here, this one coming out here, this one coming out here. I don't think we're going to need this one, even though it's got little divisions and stuff starting to happen on it. It won't take long for the other two to catch up, so let's get rid of that one. And I'm going to choose the two that fill in an area that doesn't really have any shoots going to it at the moment, which is right there. So they're in a good spot to fill in that area, and then that will fill in that area, and that together will make a canopy up here. And then you'll have a separate little canopy down here, and potentially that one could catch up, or it could be a little puff out the back, you know, little puff of canopy. So it's sort of like, might be up to 3 canopies going through, a bit like the old Mallee style. And this one here I'm going to leave to fatten up, so I'm going to leave that one long. It's got to catch up, it's a bit weak. So on that one, purely clip and grow, and I think we're getting there. Let's have a bit of a close-up. Man, editing is going to be a pain in the ass with all my coughing. Okay, so let's start at, well, yeah, I'm going to say that could be a potential front. Somewhere in there. There's not bad either. But it does go away from you a lot. Don't do it, Sammy. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, you've got to do it, Sam. You've got to do it. Don't do it. Okay, I'm going to have to do it. I'm seeing a bit I don't like. It will look better when it gets bark like that. But this section here, I'm not overly happy with. I'm just going to chop it back hard. Make some more interest. And this one here, I'm going to chop it back now so that it divides out a bit closer, so there's a shorter straight section. And it'll catch up in no time. Right, that's about it. So there you go, somewhere around there, that'll be the front. reasonable root system coming outside here. Could be something on the other side, we'll see. Let's get the other one up. Okay guys, well, what a hell of a cutback. That's bonsai for you. I'll put a picture up of what they did look like. And now, what they look like now. And now what they look like now. Pretty cool. Give them a spin. And that's it. Cheers for watching Aussie Bonsai Bloke. Share bonsai with your mates. And let's all have a great time. Thank you very much. And catch you next time. Cheers.